My sister copied every outfit I wore, but made it designer. So, I gave her something to copy that cost her everything. I've had a shadow since the day I was born, my younger sister Savannah. And I don't mean that in the sweet, little sister looks up to big sister kind of way. I mean it like if I wore Walmart jeans, she'd show up in 7 for all mankind. If I found a cool vintage Nirvana tee at Goodwill for $5, she'd hunt down the $300 Saint Laurent version from their latest collection. Growing up in our ranch house in Austin, Texas, this was just Savannah being Savannah. Mom and Dad thought it was adorable how she admired my style. They'd chuckle when she'd beg them to take her to Nordstrom after seeing me in something from Target. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, Ember, Mom would say, ruffling my auburn hair while Savannah modeled her latest purchase. But what started as harmless sibling mimicry turned into something darker after we both graduated from University of Texas. I was 24, working my first real job at a marketing firm downtown, finally earning enough to buy myself nice things instead of relying on thrift stores and clearance racks. The first sign that our dynamic had shifted came when I splurged on a pair of black leather work flats from DSW, $48 that I'd saved up for 2 months to afford. That Sunday at our weekly family dinner, Savannah waltzed into Mom's dining room wearing identical flats. Except hers were Louboutin. $800 of buttery leather with that signature red sole catching the light as she crossed her legs under the table. I just loved Ember's style so much, I had to get my own pair, she announced, cutting into Mom's pot roast. Though I thought I'd upgrade the quality a bit. She winked at me across the table like we were sharing some inside joke. Dad raised his beer bottle in approval. Smart thinking, honey. Always invest in quality. I felt my stomach twist as I looked down at my suddenly cheap-looking flats. The synthetic leather seemed to mock me under the chandelier light. But this was just the beginning. That Thanksgiving, I wore our grandmother's vintage emerald brooch, a family heirloom that had been sitting in my jewelry box since Grandma Pearl passed. It was delicate and beautiful, probably from the 1940s, with small diamonds surrounding the center stone. Savannah complimented it all evening, asking about its history, taking photos of it pinned to my navy dress. I thought she was genuinely interested in our family history. Come Christmas morning, she presented Mom with a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a modern interpretation of Grandma's brooch, bigger emerald, more diamonds, set in platinum instead of the original white gold. She'd had it custom-made by some high-end jeweler in Dallas. I was so inspired by Grandma's old brooch that Ember wore, Savannah explained as Mom gasped over the gift. I thought you deserved something even more special. Mom's eyes filled with tears as she hugged Savannah. This is the most thoughtful gift I've ever received. I sat there holding my sweater from Kohl's, watching my sister rewrite our family narrative with her checkbook. Spring brought new levels of Savannah's copying obsession. I'd found the perfect vintage leather jacket at a consignment shop in South Austin, distressed brown leather with silver zippers, probably from the 80s. It cost me $35 and looked incredible with everything. I wore it on a first date with this guy Trevor I'd met through work. The date went well. Trevor and I grabbed dinner at Franklin Barbecue, then walked around Zilker Park as the sun set. He kept complimenting my jacket, saying it looked like something a rock star would wear. For once, I felt effortlessly cool instead of constantly calculating whether I could afford something. 2 weeks later, Savannah showed up to my 25th birthday party at my apartment wearing what looked like my exact jacket. Except when I got closer, I could see the subtle differences. The leather was pristine, the zippers were real silver, and there was a small designer tag sewn inside the collar. Happy birthday, sis, she said, air-kissing my cheeks. Love what you've done with the place. She gestured around my modest one-bedroom apartment, then shrugged off the jacket to reveal a silk camisole underneath. Oh, this old thing? I tracked down the original designer. Apparently it's from this amazing vintage collection they're re-releasing. $5,000 for the authentic version, but so worth it for the craftsmanship. My friends gathered around her, running their hands over the buttery leather and asking where she'd found it. My thrift store treasure suddenly felt like a cheap knockoff hanging in my closet. But things got truly bizarre that summer. I started noticing Savannah's car in my office parking garage. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe she had meetings nearby. Then my coworker Brianna mentioned seeing my twin sister taking photos outside our building. She looked just like you but with better clothes, Brianna laughed. Said she was scouting locations for some photo shoot. That's when I realized Savannah wasn't just copying my outfits anymore. She was stalking my wardrobe choices in real time. She'd show up at my workplace, mentally catalog what I was wearing, then post Instagram photos of herself in designer versions at better locations. If I wore a simple sundress to work, she'd post herself in the haute couture version at some rooftop bar in Dallas. If I carried a vintage purse, she'd be at Neiman Marcus buying the current season's interpretation by evening. Her Instagram followers ate it up. Comments like "style icon" and "wish I had your fashion sense" flooded her posts. Meanwhile, our parents continued praising her elevated taste while suggesting I should learn from Savannah's eye for quality. She just has such natural style, Mom would say during our Sunday dinners. Maybe you could ask her for advice, Ember. Shopping doesn't have to be so budget-conscious. The words stung because they were wrapped in concern. Like my thrift store finds and sale rack victories were somehow embarrassing the family. Like Savannah's ability to drop hundreds on a whim made her the better daughter. I started dreading getting dressed in the morning, knowing that within hours, Savannah would have a superior version documented for the world to see. My confidence crumbled with each copycat post. I felt like I was living in her shadow, constantly being reminded that whatever I could afford, she could afford better. But I had no idea how far she was willing to go until my wedding planning began. Everything changed the day I brought my wedding dress home. Derek and I had been engaged for 8 months, planning a small May ceremony at the Driscoll Hotel, this beautiful historic venue in downtown Austin that we'd fallen in love with during our second date. I'd been saving for 2 years to afford both the venue and my dream dress. The dress was everything I'd ever wanted: ivory silk with delicate lace sleeves, a fitted bodice that flared into a flowing skirt, and tiny pearl buttons down the back. It cost me $1,800, which might as well have been $18,000 given my marketing assistant's salary. But it was perfect. It was mine. I hung it carefully in my bedroom closet, zipped inside its protective bag, and would sometimes just look at it while getting ready for work. In 3 weeks, I'd walk down the aisle wearing that dress, marrying the man I loved, surrounded by our closest friends and family. Derek and I spent that Tuesday evening in my apartment, finalizing the last wedding details. We were addressing invitations for the rehearsal dinner when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Savannah had posted a new photo. Probably another copycat outfit, I muttered, not really paying attention as I clicked on the notification. The image loaded and my heart stopped. There was Savannah in a flowing white gown, standing on some cliff overlooking a canyon with a man I'd never seen before. The caption read, "When you know you know. Sometimes you just have to seize the moment and say, I do, under the Nevada stars. Mrs. Garrett now. Ring sparkles #Vegas wedding #spontaneous #blessed. But it wasn't just any white dress she was wearing. It was my dress. My actual wedding dress. I zoomed in on the photo, my hands shaking. There were the pearl buttons I'd counted so many times. There was the specific way the lace met the silk at the shoulders. There was even a tiny pulled thread near the left hip that I'd noticed when I first tried it on. "Derek," I whispered, my voice coming out strangled. "Derek, look at this." He looked over my shoulder and his face went pale. "Is that?" I was already running to my bedroom, Derek close behind. I flung open my closet door and unzipped the garment bag with trembling fingers. Empty. The bag that had held my dream dress now contained nothing but a padded hanger and a faint smell of Savannah's perfume, that expensive Chanel stuff she always wore. "She took it," I said, staring into the empty bag. "She actually took my wedding dress." Derek pulled me into his arms as the reality hit me. My sister had broken into my apartment, stolen my wedding dress, and eloped in it. She'd literally stolen my wedding moment and made it her own. I sank onto my bedroom floor, clutching my phone as tears streamed down my face. The Instagram post had already gotten dozens of likes and comments. "You look stunning. So romantic. What a gorgeous dress." Derek was on the phone with his mom, asking if she knew any bridal shops that might have something in my size on short notice. But we both knew it was hopeless. With 5 days until the wedding, everything would need alterations. I scrolled through more of Savannah's Vegas photos. There she was cutting a cake in my dress. There she was dancing with her new husband, some guy named Brad who looked like he had money. There she was toasting with champagne while wearing the dress I'd saved 2 years to buy. My maid of honor, Carmen, came over an hour later and found me still on the bathroom floor, staring at my phone in disbelief. "We'll figure this out," she said, already pulling up bridal shop websites on her laptop. "We'll find you something even better." But as she made call after call to every bridal shop in Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio, we both knew the truth. I was going to walk down the aisle in 5 days wearing whatever we could scramble together, while everyone whispered about how beautiful Savannah had looked in what should have been my dress. That night, I finally understood that Savannah didn't just want my style anymore. She wanted my entire life. I walked down the aisle of the Driscoll Hotel in a borrowed dress that Carmen's cousin had worn to her own wedding 2 years earlier. It was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't mine. The champagne-colored silk was a size too big, hastily altered with safety pins hidden under a borrowed sash. Every step I took, I could hear the whispers. "Did you see Savannah's wedding photos? That dress was absolutely stunning. I wonder why Ember chose something so different from her sister's style. Savannah looked like a movie star in that gown." Derek squeezed my hand at the altar, whispering, "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," but I could barely focus on his words. All I could think about was Savannah wearing my dress in some Vegas chapel, posting about her spontaneous love story while I stood there in someone else's dream. The reception was torture. Every time someone showed me their phone to gush over Savannah's romantic elopement photos, I felt like I was being stabbed. She'd tagged the photos with #SisterInspiration, claiming I'd given her the idea for a destination wedding. "Your sister is just so adventurous," Aunt Linda said, showing me a photo of Savannah and Brad kissing in front of the Bellagio fountains. And that dress. Where did she find something so perfect on such short notice? I smiled and nodded, pretending it didn't feel like my heart was being ripped out every time someone praised her impeccable taste and natural style. After the honeymoon, Derek and I tried to settle into married life, but family dinners became unbearable. Mom couldn't stop talking about Savannah's whirlwind romance and how meant to be it all seemed. "She just has such good instincts," Mom would say, passing around her phone with more Vegas photos. "And Brad is such a catch. He owns 3 car dealerships in Dallas. They're already looking at houses in Highland Park." Dad would nod approvingly. Smart girl, knowing a good opportunity when she sees one. Meanwhile, Savannah played the part of the blushing newlywed perfectly. She'd call during our Sunday dinners, breathlessly updating everyone on her new life. The Highland Park mansion with the pool. The country club membership. The shopping trips to New York and Paris. "Brad just loves spoiling me," she'd say through the phone speaker. "Yesterday he surprised me with a Cartier bracelet just because I mentioned liking jewelry. I'm so lucky to have found someone who appreciates the finer things in life." I'd sit there eating Mom's meatloaf, listening to my sister describe a life that seemed ripped from a romance novel, all while wearing the engagement ring she'd probably picked out after seeing mine first. 3 months passed in this awkward dance of family gatherings where everyone celebrated Savannah's fairy tale, while my actual wedding felt like an afterthought. She'd FaceTime in from charity galas and wine tastings, always perfectly dressed, always glowing with happiness. But then something shifted in her voice during one particular Sunday dinner call. "Actually, I have some exciting news," Savannah announced, her voice carrying that familiar edge of competition. "I'm getting this amazing opportunity at Brad's bank, Highland First Capital. They want me to present to some of their biggest clients next week." Mom gasped with pride. "Oh honey, that's wonderful. You're so talented." "What kind of clients?" Dad asked, always interested in business opportunities. "Ultra-high net worth individuals," Savannah said, and I could practically hear her preening through the phone. "We're talking about people worth hundreds of millions. Very conservative, very traditional, very particular about how they're approached. Brad says they usually only work with senior partners, but they're making an exception because they were so impressed with my credentials." She went on and on about the importance of this presentation, how it could set up her entire career, how these clients were worth tens of millions in potential business for the bank. "They're incredibly religious, apparently," she continued. "Old Texas oil money, very traditional values. Brad's been coaching me on exactly how to present myself, completely professional, conservative, elegant but understated." As she talked, something clicked in my brain. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of interest instead of resignation. "That sounds like a lot of pressure," I said innocently. "What are you planning to wear?" "Oh, I haven't decided yet," Savannah replied. "But you know me, I'll find something perfect. I always do." After we hung up, I sat at Mom's dinner table, a plan slowly forming in my mind. For once, I wasn't thinking about what Savannah had taken from me. I was thinking about what I could give her. The next 2 weeks became my obsession. Every evening after work, I'd come home to our small apartment and dive into research about Highland First Capital and their employee policies. Derek would find me hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table, surrounded by printed articles and notes. "What exactly are you looking for?" he asked one evening, bringing me a cup of coffee and peering over my shoulder at my screen. "Ammunition," I said simply. Highland First Capital's website painted them as Austin's premier wealth management firm, specializing in traditional values-based financial planning for discerning clients. Their client testimonials were filled with phrases like moral integrity, conservative principles, and family values. These weren't just rich people, they were rich people with very specific ideas about propriety and professionalism. But the real goldmine came when I found an article in the Austin Business Journal from 6 months earlier, Highland First Capital parts ways with senior associate following inappropriate client meeting attire. I read the article 3 times, taking notes. A long-time employee had been terminated after wearing what the clients deemed unprofessional and offensive clothing to a presentation. The article was vague about details, but mentioned that the clients had walked out of the meeting and threatened to move their accounts, worth over $50 million, to a competitor. The employee had tried to explain that the outfit looked different under the conference room lights than it had at home, but Highland First's management sided with the clients. Zero tolerance for anything that could be perceived as inappropriate. Perfect. Now I needed to find the right outfit, something that would photograph beautifully under normal lighting but transform into a disaster under harsh fluorescent conference room lights. Something with sheer panels that would look subtle in soft natural light but become completely transparent under bright office lighting. I spent my lunch break scouring websites, looking for the perfect trap. It needed to be from a designer brand that Savannah would recognize and trust. It needed to look professional and conservative in photos. And it needed to be completely inappropriate for a meeting with conservative religious clients. Finally, I found it on the website of one of Savannah's favorite designers, a black cocktail dress that looked like standard office wear in the model photos. Long sleeves, modest neckline, knee-length hem. Perfect for a conservative presentation. But when I read the product details and customer reviews, I found exactly what I was looking for. The dress had strategic sheer panels along the sides and back that were nearly invisible in soft lighting. Several reviewers mentioned being surprised by how the dress looked under different lighting conditions. One review said, "Looked professional in my bedroom mirror but felt like lingerie under my office lights. Definitely more of a nightclub dress than office wear." I ordered it immediately, paying for overnight shipping to make sure it arrived before the weekend. When the package came, I tried the dress on in my bathroom under the harsh vanity lights. The effect was exactly what I'd hoped for. What looked like a conservative black dress in dim lighting became obviously inappropriate under bright lights. The sheer panels revealed everything, making it look like expensive lingerie rather than office attire. Stage 1 complete. Now for the Instagram trap. I spent Saturday morning setting up the perfect photo shoot in my apartment. I arranged soft natural lighting from my bedroom window, making sure the shadows fell exactly right to hide the dress's more revealing aspects. In photos, it looked like the perfect conservative work outfit, professional, elegant, and expensive. I styled it with simple jewelry and nude heels, pulled my hair back in a sleek bun, and took dozens of photos until I found the perfect shot. In the image, I looked like a successful businesswoman heading to an important meeting. The sheer panels were completely invisible. Sunday evening, I posted the photo with a caption designed specifically to catch Savannah's attention, "Monday motivation. Ready to close some deals in this gorgeous piece from designer name. Sometimes the right outfit is all the confidence you need. Hashtag power dressing, hashtag Monday motivation, hashtag closing deals, hashtag worth it." I included all of Savannah's favorite hashtags and made sure to tag the designer. Then I waited. Within 30 minutes, my phone buzzed with a like notification. Savannah had taken the bait. Over the next hour, I watched her like and screenshot the post. My cousin Riley, who worked as a receptionist at Highland First Capital, had agreed to be my inside source for information. By Sunday night, she was texting me screenshots of Savannah frantically messaging her, asking if she knew anything about the dress. "Can you find out where she got this?" One message read. "It's perfect for my presentation, but I need to order it tonight." Riley played her part perfectly, saying she had no idea but that it looked super professional and expensive. By Monday morning, Riley was sending me updates about Savannah's growing panic as she searched online for the dress. She'd found it on the designer's website and placed an express order without reading the product details, because why would she? It was from her trusted designer, it looked conservative in my photo, and she was running out of time. The dress would arrive Tuesday. Her presentation was Wednesday morning. I spent Tuesday evening at home with Derek, trying to act normal while my phone buzzed with updates from Riley. Savannah had received the dress and was apparently thrilled with how it looked. She'd even posted an Instagram story of herself trying it on in her Highland Park mansion's walk-in closet, though the lighting there was as soft and forgiving as I'd hoped. "You seem nervous about something," Derek observed as I paced around our living room. "Just thinking about work stuff," I lied, but he gave me a knowing look. "This is about Savannah, isn't it?" I stopped pacing and looked at my husband, this good, honest man who'd watched me suffer through months of my sister's cruelty. "She stole our wedding," I said quietly. "She's stolen everything from me for years, and everyone acts like she's the perfect one." Derek nodded slowly. "So what are you going to do about it?" I looked at my phone, where Riley's latest text was waiting. "She's so confident about tomorrow. Keeps talking about how this presentation is going to make her career. I'm going to give her something to copy," I said. "Something that's going to cost her everything." Wednesday morning arrived with unseasonably warm weather for October in Austin. I got to work early, unable to concentrate on anything except waiting for updates from Riley. My phone sat on my desk like a ticking bomb, and I jumped every time it buzzed with a text or email. At 9:15 a.m., Riley's first message came through. She just walked in wearing a long coat. "Can't see the dress yet, but she looks confident. Heading straight to Conference Room A for her 9:30 presentation." Conference Room A was Highland First Capital's largest meeting space, with floor-to-ceiling windows and the harshest fluorescent lighting in the building. Riley had mentioned it was where they held all their most important client meetings because it photographed well for their marketing materials. Perfect. At 9:35, my phone buzzed again. OMG Ember. She just took off her coat and I swear I heard someone gasp. The client's wife literally covered her husband's eyes and said, "This is highly inappropriate." Savannah looks confused, but I can see everything through that dress under these lights. I stared at my phone screen, my heart pounding. It was actually working. Another text came through. She's trying to wrap her blazer around herself, but it's too small. The husband is shaking his head and gathering his papers. The wife is telling someone, "This shows a serious lack of judgment and questionable values." I could barely breathe as I waited for the next update. Around me, my coworkers were going about their normal Wednesday morning, answering emails and preparing for meetings, completely unaware that 3 miles away, my sister's career was imploding in real time. 9:42 a.m., they're all standing up to leave. All of them. Savannah keeps saying, "This isn't what it looked like online, and this is a misunderstanding," but they're not listening. The wife just said something about family values and moral standards. 9:48 a.m., conference room is empty except for Savannah and her manager. She's crying and trying to explain something about lighting and photos. Her manager looks pissed. This was supposed to be their biggest account, like $50 million walking out the door. I put my phone face down on my desk and tried to focus on my computer screen, but the words blurred together. Part of me felt triumphant, but another part felt sick to my stomach. This was really happening. My plan was actually working. At 10:15, Riley sent a longer message. HR just called her upstairs. Building security is at her desk. I heard her trying to explain to someone on the phone that her sister tricked her with a photo, but honestly, she sounds completely insane. Who would believe that story? Security. Word is spreading fast. Apparently she cost the company their biggest client and the rest of the morning crawled by. I refreshed Instagram obsessively, but Savannah hadn't posted anything since her confident selfie the night before. Her last post was a mirror photo in her walk-in closet, wearing the black dress with the caption, "Ready to make things happen tomorrow. Sometimes you have to dress for the job you want." Briefcase sparkles #bosslady #grateful #big things. At 12:30 p.m., Riley sent the final update. She's gone. Packed up her desk and escorted out by made some really powerful people very angry. Don't think she'll be getting a reference from this place. I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. It was done. After years of watching Savannah steal my style, my moments, and even my wedding dress, I'd finally given her something that cost her everything. That evening, Derek found me sitting on our couch, staring at my phone. "Any word from your family?" he asked gently. I shook my head. Nothing. No calls, no texts. It's like she just disappeared. Derek sat beside me and took my hand. "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Hollow," I said finally. "I thought I'd feel better, but I just feel hollow." My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Call me. We need to talk about what happened with Savannah today." I looked at Derek, who nodded encouragingly. "Time to face the music," I said, dialing Mom's number. But as the phone rang, I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what Savannah might copy from me next. She couldn't afford to anymore. Mom's voice was tight with controlled anger when she answered. "Ember, I need you to explain what happened today." I'd been rehearsing this conversation in my head all afternoon, but hearing the accusation in her voice still made my stomach clench. "What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me." Savannah called, crying hysterically about some dress and how you tricked her. "She lost her job, Ember. Her marriage is already strained because Brad is furious about the embarrassment at his bank. She's saying you deliberately set her up." I took a deep breath, looking at Derek for support. He nodded encouragingly. "Mom, all I did was post a photo of an outfit I liked. I'm not responsible for Savannah's choices." "But she said." "She said what?" "That I forced her to steal my wedding dress? That I made her copy every single thing I've worn for the past 25 years? That I somehow made her break into my apartment and take something that belonged to me?" There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, she stole my wedding dress. My actual wedding dress that I saved 2 years to buy. She wore it to her Vegas elopement and posted photos online while I had to walk down the aisle in a borrowed dress. And you've spent the last 6 months telling me how beautiful she looked in it." I heard Mom sigh heavily. "I know that was wrong, honey, but nothing. She's been stealing my life piece by piece for years, and everyone in this family has enabled it. You've praised her for having better taste while suggesting I learn from her, even though her taste was literally just copying mine with a bigger budget. She looks up to you, Ember. She's always looked up to you." I laughed bitterly. Looking up to someone doesn't mean stealing their wedding dress, Mom. It doesn't mean stalking their workplace to copy their outfits. It doesn't mean turning every family dinner into a showcase for how much better her version of my life is. The conversation went on for another 20 minutes, but I could tell Mom was finally starting to understand the pattern she'd been blind to for years. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in months. Over the next few weeks, the family dynamics slowly shifted. Dad called to apologize for not seeing how his praise of Savannah's upgrades had affected me. My aunts and cousins started asking me directly about my outfits instead of waiting to see Savannah's designer versions. Savannah herself disappeared from social media entirely. Riley told me through the grapevine that she and Brad were in marriage counseling, trying to work through the financial stress and embarrassment. Apparently, Highland First Capital had made sure word spread through Austin's financial community about what happened, making it difficult for her to find another position. I felt bad about that, really I did. But every time I started to feel guilty, I remembered standing in my empty closet, looking at the garment bag that should have held my wedding dress. 3 months later, I got an unexpected text from Savannah. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop in South Austin, neutral territory. She looked different, older, more tired, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer armor. She'd lost the polished, perfect veneer that had defined her for so long. I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. Not just for the dress, but for everything. I know what I've been doing all these years, and I know it was wrong. I stirred my latte, not sure what to say. I was jealous, she continued. Not of your clothes or your style, but of how confident you were. How you could find these amazing pieces for nothing and make them look incredible. How you never seemed to care what other people thought. I wanted that confidence, so I thought if I could copy your style but make it more expensive, I'd somehow get your confidence too. Savannah. I know it doesn't excuse anything. Especially the wedding dress. That was... She shook her head. That was unforgivable. I saw it hanging there and I wanted what you had. The love, the commitment, the fairy tale wedding. I thought if I wore your dress, I could have your happiness. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her marriage struggles, her job search difficulties, her realization that she'd built an entire identity around being the better version of me. I told her about years of feeling inadequate, always wondering if anything I did was good enough or if it was just waiting to be improved upon. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, too much damage had been done for that. But it was a start. 6 months later, Derek and I hosted our first family dinner in our new house, a small but beautiful place we'd saved up for together. Savannah came alone, she and Brad had separated, wearing clothes I'd never seen before and didn't recognize from any designer. She complimented my vintage dress without taking any photos of it. I like your style, she said simply. It's very you. After everyone left, Derek and I cleaned up the kitchen together, talking about our plans for the weekend, for the holidays, for the future. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what Savannah might copy from my life. She was too busy building her own. And I was finally free to live mine without looking over my shoulder, wondering who might be watching, waiting to make it better. The next morning I posted a photo on Instagram, me in my pajamas, hair messy, coffee mug in hand, genuine smile on my face. The caption read, Sunday morning realness. No filter, no agenda, just grateful for this perfectly imperfect life. For the first time in years, Savannah didn't like the post. She was probably too busy living her own life to worry about copying mine. And that, I realized, was exactly how it should be.